I know he, hi Libby.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Better, a lot better.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. You would it, I hope you didn't have the virus, did you?
No, I came back negative. I just had bronchitis.
Oh,
So
well,
it's like,
that's no fun either.
no, but at least it wasn't COVID.
Well, I guess maybe I'm not sure who will show up this time. It's kind of been a guess with these last bunch of Zoom sessions. But I think maybe we shouldn't wait around to find out. We should just maybe go ahead and I guess what I wanted to do with the last batch of sessions from now till the exam is just to start sort of practicing at that stuff. Um,
Yeah.
so I guess Libby, did you end up doing the deconstruction ones, the deconstruction workbook
I've had
assignment?
a I was looking this morning. I haven't really started it, but I was looking through it all like cuz I wanted to see what it was and everything.
Okay.
But
Oh,
I have it up here.
okay. I guess um, I guess we could maybe really quickly review the exercises we did. Do you want to do that, Noe? Just go back over it, say sort of why don't you fill us in on what you learned? I'm gonna. Do you have yours? Do you have your version?
Yeah, I do.
Do you want to share yours? Share your screen,
Okay.
or do you want me to share my screen with the blank one?
I don't mind. I can share my screen. It's just I can't. It says it's disabled.
Okay, yeah. Hold on. Okay, now you can
Okay.
share your screen.
Okay. There it is. I got a lot wrong on this, which is kind of scary.
Well, you have to learn
Like,
how to do it first before you get the hang. You have to get the
hmm.
hang of it first. So let me pull this up because it's actually a good guide for you guys on how to go about this. Um, hold on, let me stop the share for a second and show you a step by step thing here. Um, so I will do that, and then so the Stony Brook Center actually has only 7 steps, but I'm going to show you guys, you know, 8 because I think 8 or maybe more along the line. So when you get, I mean, there will be specific questions with the different problems that I ask you on the final exam, but here's just generally speaking 8 steps to kind of deconstructing stories and deconstructing the news. And as you can see, so the first thing you want to do is see if the claims in the story, the headline, and also I'd say the lead match with the evidence presented in the story. Um, Second, did the reporter open the freezer? In other words, did the person who's telling you the news, do they have direct knowledge of the evidence? Have they seen it with their own eyes? Um, Step 3, follow the 4 steps for reading laterally. So if you guys remember, I had put the reading laterally uh, PDF. It's like a 1-page thing on week 9. And I think I reposted it this week, but this is what it looks like. Move, check previous work. Many provocative claims on the internet have already been fact checked or researched. News coverage, trusted online sites, or fact checking, such as PolitiFact or Snopes, may have a synthesis of the evidence readily available. 2, go upstream to the source. So check the embedded web links or perform a search to find the original or search for the source of information. So you can sort of see how well sourced the stuff is by checking the sources yourself if it's been reported transparently. Not all sources are created equal. If you are unsure about the quality of a source, read laterally across other trustworthy sites to find out more information about the platform or author. And then finally, sometimes reading laterally will suggest that a source is not accurate, is more complex than you thought, or leads to a dead end. So then you kind of check back over once you start having questions arise. So this lecture is kind of about each of the steps, but generally, see if the claims match the evidence in the story, see, if there's any direct evidence, read laterally, we'll see what else has been reported, and if you can find out a bit about the sourcing yourself. Step 4 is using the I'm vain checklist, evaluate the sources, and, we'll practice some of that today. Step 5, does the reporter make his or her work transparent? So, specifically, for example, if there's anonymous sources, do they explain why the sources are anonymous? Do they make that clear in the story? And do those seem like credible explanations for preserving anonymity? Does the reporter place the facts in the story in context? So is there anything quoted or done out of context? Are key questions answered about the whole story? And finally, is the story fair? So, if there's a claim made about someone, is there a chance for, like, if somebody's accused of something specifically, this is a test of fairness. If there's an accusation against somebody in the story or a suggestion of something bad about someone, did that person or company or whatever get an opportunity to respond to those claims? And that would be a basic test of fairness. So, okay, I'm stopping my share. Noah, you want to pick up to those steps? Those should at least give you kind of a process or a method, though, right? For approaching things. Okay. So
I don't know, like I got the first one super wrong. I thought the title was pretty accurate to the story, but I guess I didn't really read critically enough, so I don't.
okay.
Yeah.
So Libby, this first one is, does the headline, this is just the basic, we're Deconstruction Workbook 1, Exercise 1. So we're starting off with the most basic issues. So does the headline or does the claim match what's in the story?
No.
Right. And why would you say no?
I mean, it appears that there were only 2 women, and I think plague suggests like a lot.
Yeah. So
A
that
bit
makes
like
sense.
it seems like a single incident. I mean, I haven't read all the way, obviously, but yeah, it just seems like a huge exaggeration or like hyperbole.
Right. Okay. So Noe, did you ended up with something different the first time around?
Yeah, I guess I was focusing on the guy's quote, which was that it was a very underreported crime. So I thought it was like alluding to more cases on the campus that just weren't being reported, but I guess not in this case.
Yeah, you have to look at what the actual facts are that are presented. And then what was the next one? And we reviewed these last time. So Libby, I guess I just want to do it quickly because we already have the video up about it. But here again, there's a question of does the evidence support the headline or the claim, right? And we won't. There's a discussion of it on the last video, so you can check that out. What's the next one?
The Ryan Gosling one.
Yeah, the next one after that.
Oh, okay. This one.
Yeah. So we
These aren't real articles, right?
they are real articles, but they're probably taken from college newspapers or from they're real articles with problems in them. Okay.
Yeah.
Unless they're perfect, unless you can't find unless your answer is nope, I don't see any problem. But if there is a problem, you have to explain what it is. And I guess again, we cover this in the last video, so maybe we should just for the sake of time. But basically, this is another one where it's a headline and a claim, and is there evidence supporting it? What's the next one? Did we do this one? You guys may have to do this one.
Don't remember.
I know that we went over it on the video last week, but
I think we did go over it.
yeah. So scroll down a little for the instructions. Okay, so occasionally a reporter will not lead with the main point. So the first sentence won't tell you the whole point of the first sentence of the article won't necessarily tell you the whole point of the story sometimes. A lot of the times, a basic news lead, which is the first sentence of a story, will tell you the whole point. But sometimes a reporter will not lead with the main point of a story, instead start with some scene setting or an anecdote, which is like a short little tale, right? When that happens, the lead may come later in the story, but it still tells you what the main point is. Find the story's lead and circle it. Circle examples of direct and indirect evidence. Circle examples of context. And then it says, how close does the reporter come to opening the freezer? Now, Libby, do you understand the concept of opening the freezer?
No.
Okay, Noe, do you want to try and explain it?
It's like if the reporter goes directly to the source of the issue instead of just
with the hurricane.
Hmm?
What was the example with the freezer?
There's a bombing and everyone was saying that there were bodies in the freezer. So the reporter just took I guess whoever said that word for it, and it just found out that there weren't actually bodies in the freezer. So he didn't actually check in the freezer.
It was Hurricane Katrina, and they were at the Coliseum where a lot of the people who had lost their homes in the storm were being put up, and the guy had said, "Oh yeah, there were all these people killed in the hurricane, and there's a freezer behind me full of." One of the National Guard or a couple of the National Guards guys said there was a freezer full of bodies right behind us, and the reporter didn't go check the freezer himself. He didn't open the freezer to look to see if there are actually bodies in there. And it turned out the National Guards guys had heard that from someone else, so they hadn't opened the freezer themselves. So everybody thought there was a freezer full of bodies, and there were no bodies in the freezer. So the reporter came out with a front page story saying there's freezers full of bodies. There's all these huge death toll from Hurricane Katrina. And then it turned out the story fell apart. So we use that as an analogy now to say, did the reporter open the freezer? It's just a metaphor, right? So the question is, in this case, what would we call opening the freezer? So your questions in this one are threefold, right? Find the lead, which is the main, where's the part where they tell us what the main point of the story is after the scene setter, the opening anecdote. Circle examples of direct and indirect evidence, and circle examples of context, and how close does the reporter come to opening the freezer? Like, what would the freezer be in this analogy? And so why don't you guys do?
I was just going to say, in some cases, is opening the freezer just talking to a victim and stuff like that?
Well, see if you can find what they mean by the metaphor in this example. Like, what would work for you for that? So why don't we just do find the lead after the opening anecdote or scene setter? There was the main point. And why don't you guys see if you can find Find opening the freezer. Maybe we'll deal with indirect and direct evidence later.
Oh my god, that's terrible.
Yeah.
I'd say, is it the second, like the page break, the 16-minute recording? That's the first kind of fact, or at least not part of the story. It changes, it
The
shifts.
lead. Would you agree with that, Noe?
Yeah.
Okay. And then in this analogy, what would the opening the freezer be? And did the reporter open the freezer?
Okay.
So if in that analogy, the evidence is the dead bodies.
So the evidence here is the 16-minute recording.
Yeah.
Um.
You remember the answer to this? No, we went over this last time.
I think it was the part where he quoted the actual recording, which is, "I want sex," he said on the recording 1 or 2 times. That's all. Like that part.
Oh,
I
right.
think that's opening the freezer.
It's not where we know the opening the freezer thing. Yeah, it's quoted, but how do we know? How do we know that this story is actually quoting directly from the recording?
You don't.
There's somewhere in the story where they tell us that.
Okay.
So as you said, in this analogy, the bodies in the freezer are the recording, right? So at what point do we learn that the reporters open this? Are we told directly that the reporters open the freezer?
Oh my god, this is giving me a headache.
It's not here, right?
Oh, she first took it to the New York Times.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my god.
And then to the
Remember
Queen.
that
Yeah.
point?
But so presumably this is a New York Times
Yes.
article. Okay, what's quite hard to work out when there's no references.
You mean
Okay,
it doesn't say it's a New York Times story?
no.
Yeah, but then why would the reporter be talking about the New York Times? You know,
Because if that was the first paper that they took it to, then that's fact. Like you can't argue objectivity, right?
right?
Like if I worked for the Globe or something and a huge scandal was uncovered at New York Times or someone dropped off an envelope there, I'd have to acknowledge the victim first brought it to the New York Times on this date.
Yeah. Well, this is a New York.
But we found out everything since. No, I'm kidding.
Well, anyway, this is a New York Times story, and yes,
Okay.
good job.
Oh my god.
And who
That's
knew all
actually...
about the stabbed in the back myth? You missed our discussion of your stabbed in the back poster. By the way,
really?
yeah. Wait, hold on. Stop the share for a second.
That's embarrassing.
Why is that? That's great. Here, look. Where is it?
Because I mean, those stick figures, I didn't know how to color them, so I had to find circles online.
That's all right. Libby, we love you for your ideas, not for,
That's embarrassing.
not for coloring. But here, look. Where is it?
I searched up green and purple stick figures and searched for so long, but nothing. So nothing suitable with a knife or anything was there.
So here, you see this? Oh wait, no, you don't. Hold on. Give me a second. You see this? So the word Durchschlagen, don't ask me to pronounce German. Durchschlagen is hard to pronounce, but important to understand. It translates stab in the back myth and was a key element of the revival. Now, lo and behold, they're publishing this article, this column was published yesterday.
That's so weird.
So, what I'm saying is that this whole history is now appearing again in the press because of what happened with the election. A lot of people are seeing connections with the stabbed in the back myth. So
Is that the playing the like when you say stab in the back myth? Is that playing the victim of some kind, or is he talking about something specific?
Well, it was the original stabbed in the back myth was what? Do you remember?
I thought all that stuff, the Purple Party, was all crap. I don't know what the original was.
You didn't know where stabbed in the back came from?
No.
Well, why did you draw the stabbed in the back figure from the?
Because you said in the Purple Party thing, you said they're being like they believe they're being stabbed in the back, and that sentence really stood out to me. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll allude to that part because I had ideas of like having all the women being like corrupted or whatever. But
I thought you were an expert on your history, that you knew all about German, because the whole
no, I do.
the whole exercise was based on the Nazi Party election in Germany in 1933.
Oh no, I know about that.
So do you know about the stabbed in the back myth of Hitler? Hitler stabbed in the back myth?
Is that about him? I don't know, kind of. Like I remember learning about that in history.
You did. So yeah, you did know something about it, and it jumped out. That's why it jumped out at you. Well, as it says, this was the whole point of the Doschenschlagende, the stabbed in the back myth, which claimed that the German army, though in retreat in the fall of 1918, could have kept up the fight had it not been betrayed by the defeatist and scheming politicians who agreed on to an armistice that November. Hitler called them the November criminals. So the idea was that the Germans, this was of course a self-serving lie. Germany's armies were being routed, its strategic situation was hopeless, its sailors were mutinying, its people were approaching starvation, and only the armistice, which the Kaiser's generals asked for, spared it from a much more painful defeat. Yeah. But the nature of the myth wasn't that it should be believable, it's that it should be believed. There's a difference. So why are people bringing up the stabbed in the back myth in 2020?
Well, back then it angered and it aided Hitler's cause, right? So isn't it in some ways, like obviously Trump's doing the same thing. He's blaming, like he's got scapegoats. He's blaming the election and everything, basically to victimize himself, to find I don't know. There's like a common enemy.
So in Trump's story of the election, who won?
Himself. So he believes that.
In Hitler's version of World War I, who won?
His men. Like he felt like, didn't you just say that they were
Germany
pulled out early or whatever? Yeah.
So that's the analogy, right? They just like just like Hitler later claimed that Germany was going to win World War I, and it was the politicians that stabbed them in the back.
Yeah.
Trump is claiming he won the election, and that they got stabbed in the back by the election officials and by the rigged system. So that's why people are talking about in November 23rd. They're talking about the Hitler's old stabbed in the back myth.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense.
And their point is what? Why bother making that analogy?
Well, I mean, it draws similarities between one of the most horrible dictators and Trump. It's like to alienate Trump in a sense.
Well, okay.
Or to shed light on
so it insults
how dangerous it is too.
Right, but also where do people see beyond the superficial parallel of the Germans were, you know, the claim was that the Germans were winning, but they really weren't, and that Trump was winning, but he really wasn't. Beyond that superficial thing, what are people saying is the connection between the stab in the back myth and now? I just read it to you. So he said, where is it? The nature of the myth wasn't that it should be believable. It's that it should
Oh,
be believed.
right. Yeah.
There's a
Okay.
difference.
So it's kind of, I mean, it's the whole disinformation thing, like to make people completely distrustful of everything, right? Because people do believe it.
I think this is a little bit of a different, I mean, I think all these ideas very much overlap, Libby. So not to correct you, but I just think to finish the thought about this one, I think the disinformation one is an important idea. But I think that he explains it in these next sentences here. There's a difference between it should be believable and it should be believed. The success of the first results on a plausible interpretation of the facts. The success of the second requires a psychologically astute understanding of the people to whom the lie is peddled. The Doshenglasse may have had a transparent may have been a transparent falsehood, but had the double advantage of bucking up on a humiliated nation's pride and playing to its gut prejudices.
Mm.
You see the connection that's drawing? So people want to believe the election was rigged, that there's an emotional truth to supporters of Trump about it that transcends the facts.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean that what you're saying about disinformation doesn't play a role? No, I mean, disinformation still may be part of it, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes there's propaganda going on, right? Sometimes there's persuasive messaging going on, and there's also disinformation, which is, you know, on the one hand, messages are going out that make people emotionally connect or make them, you know, sway them because of the persuasive messaging. And at the same time, in the same whole bundle of messages, there's other stuff that just throws dust in the air and makes it cloudy about whether there's any truth at all. Those things can all happen at once, right?
But I suppose that propaganda and disinformation are just like the vehicles in which the purpose of it, like what that was saying about wanting it to be believed, if that makes sense. Like the disinformation isn't necessarily the be all and end all, it's just how it's done. Like Trump's used disinformation to achieve that rather than disinformation has like I don't know what I'm saying.
I'm thinking that what they're saying here about the emotional truth of it versus the plausibility of it, I think that's a propaganda thing. I think that goes into the umbrella of persuasive messaging. But I think disinformation is for all the people who are in the middle or who are uncertain, or remember how you guys all felt with the Hunter Biden thing, where you were actually anti-Trump Biden supporters. But I got you with those stories. I gave you the stories, you read them, and by the time you were done, you were like, well, I don't know what to believe.
Yeah.
So you weren't victims of the propaganda, but you did fall prey to the disinformation.
Yeah.
So they are, I mean, there are subtle differences, and these are terms that I'm just introducing to explain stuff. You know, these people do what they're going to do, and then we develop the terminology as we kind of try and pick it apart and figure out what they were up to. Right? But anyway, enough of the disinformation propaganda rabbit hole. How do we ever get going on that? Weren't we doing brain exercises? Deconstruction?
Yeah, we're doing I think, this one.
Yeah. Boy, your
New York.
Always going down a rabbit hole, isn't it? Anyway. All right. Well, so how about direct evidence or indirect evidence?
Indirect? Wait, what do you mean?
what is
inclusive? Like
yeah,
what's in
first of all, what do you see that's direct? Now that we know that the reporter opened the freezer, what do
yeah,
we
well,
know that's direct evidence in here? What are
well, direct in the sense that it came straight from the victim to the New York Times.
Well, no, a direct evidence would be what was on the recording.
Okay. Then the recording.
Yeah, right. The quote.
And
right
then
there.
indirect, maybe would that be talking to
The woman?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're getting just
Word of mouth. Yeah. Okay.
She says that this happened. You know, things that aren't on the recording, but we're relying on her for.
Yeah.
But we can see how, in this case, direct and indirect go together, right? Because we've got her, what she's saying, corroborated by the recording that we can, you know, the reporter can listen to themselves. And then when she's telling us things, okay, that's indirect evidence, but at least we got the recordings to know that maybe she's got some credibility with us now because of the recording.
When was this written?
You know, I've looked up the full story. Hold on.
I'm so shocked. What the heck?
You know, this might be a pretty old story.
Because I feel like, especially in this age, surely people aren't that dumb.
What do you mean? This happens all the time. 2008.
Oh wow.
Oh, see, that's ages ago.
Not to me, not to this monster. It's not.
Yeah, but no, you're not old, but like kinda.
Come on, I'm ancient compared to you. You know, I was born.
I mean, 2008's over a decade ago, so I feel like I can say that's a while ago.
I was old when y'all were born. Are you kidding? A decade ago, that was like half of your life ago. For me, that was like a blink of an eye.
True.
Like, that was, you know, that was like just yesterday, 2000. So, yeah, but you see what I'm saying about that?
Yeah.
All right, so let's look at another one or two. Okay, so let's look at these two now. All right, let me show you guys something to go.
I just fill out the answers in the box below, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to refresh your memory about something here, do I talk about critical thinking here? No. So if you guys remember, this was my PowerPoint that I was showing you all from last week. And I said, for example, oh, sorry. Go back. Right there. Okay, so we had said, if you remember so just to quickly go over what we had covered in this slideshow last week, we talked about the difference between news outlets. Oh, wait, that's important. So hold on. We had said, okay, there's direct and indirect evidence. We went over examples of both. And then there's the issue of, hold on, of I'm vain and sources. And I'd said there are outlets and there are sources. And so outlets are news outlets. Okay, just for the sake of our discussion of deconstruction, we're going to use the term sources to be much more specific. Like you guys might think, oh, these are my news sources, but just for the purposes of being able to do news deconstruction, let's call these news outlets, okay? And then sources are what we use the I'm vain, method of, I'm looking at a story and I look at the sources within the story and I say, are they independent? Are they multiple? Are they verifiable? Are they authoritative? Are they informed? And are they named? And so what is that? In this case, sources would be like this guy. Is he independent? Are there multiple sources backing up what he's saying? Is it verified what he's saying? Is he authoritative? Is he informed? And is he named? Or this person? Okay, these are sources. And this is what we use I'm vain for. Now, in doing all of this, and in the steps that I showed you guys to follow for deconstructing the news, those 8 things, throughout that is the issue of, to go back a slide, but this is a different slideshow. People have to bring a kind of critical thinking to what they're seeing. And that's a lot to ask of the ordinary news consumer. But I do think it has to happen. You have to look at a source and say, this is a trustworthy source, and compare and contrast, right? And you also have to think about the logic of what you're reading and whether it all hangs together, right? So for example, share a little bit of Simpsons with you all here.
Not a bear in sight. The Bear Patrol must be working like a charm.
That's specious reasoning, Dad.
Thank you, honey.
By your logic, I could claim that this rock keeps tigers away.
Oh, how does it work?
It doesn't work.
Uh-huh.
It's just a stupid rock.
Uh-huh.
But I don't see any tigers around here, do you?
Lisa, I want to buy your rock.
Okay, so you guys get it? So some critical thinking is important in terms of, Noe, did you understand the point being made there?
Just because something, I don't know, like I was paying too much attention to The Simpsons, I guess.
Okay, well, let's watch again. What does Homer think he learns from seeing the Bear Patrol walk by? That means drive by, the Bear Patrol van.
Right, that it keeps bears away, but
Right, and how does he know that?
because there's no bears around.
Yeah, now is that good critical thinking?
Not really.
Right, so if I show you a bunch of articles about Hunter Biden being a crackhead and how Hunter Biden got a job, in order to, because his dad was Joe Biden, and that was totally corrupt, and he was going to influence things in this corrupt country, Ukraine. Does that mean that you shouldn't vote for Joe Biden?
Probably not.
Do you understand how critical thinking is involved there?
Yeah, it's because just because there's a bunch of bad things on Joe Biden's son doesn't mean that you shouldn't vote for Biden, right?
Right. So a lot of times you have to scrutinize the claims and see if it all falls together, just like if we see sexual assaults plague campus, but we look down into the store and realize there wasn't a whole plague of sexual assaults, there's only 2. We do the critical thinking to realize that doesn't work, right? So there's critical thinking. So to go back to our workbook, let's try this one. Okay. So one of the important things about critical thinking, you guys should maybe write this down, is the idea of that correlation is not causation. Okay. So let me share my screen with you all. Well, I got it shared. Let me open up the news literacy one. Okay, so the question is, how reliable is the evidence that the students who pulled all-nighters have lower GPAs? Find an example of inference. Okay, that's when you infer something. What conclusions could replace the inference? Is it provided? I'm going to pause the recording.
Yeah, I mean, that's an example of correlation versus causation.
And how so?
Well, not all students who pull all-nighters have lower GPAs. It's just there's a tendency or some, but it's not like every single, there will be exceptions.
Well, I mean, hold on. What do we hear here? A survey of 120 found that students who have never pulled an all-nighter have average GPAs of 3.1 compared to 2.9 for those who have. It sounds like the ones who are pulling all-nighters have a lower GPA. So therefore, if you pull an all-nighter, it gives you a lower GPA, right?
Of those 120 students.
Yeah. Well,
Not
but
even.
you know, but still, I mean, that's a pretty large sample. I mean,
Yeah.
doesn't this show that if you pull an all-nighter, you'll end up doing worse on tests? That's what it says, right? They may want to sleep. A new survey shows that if they study all night, they have lower GPAs. So the all-nighters must be what's hurting their GPA, right?
True.
Now, what does it mean when you say correlation is not causation?
Well, it's like saying if there's a correlation between two things.
Right. So is there a correlation here? Don't they show a correlation?
Yeah, but it's not necessarily causation because there might be other reasons for lower GPAs as well.
There you go. So you see a bear truck go by, there's no bears. Does that mean because there's a bear patrol that there's no bears?
No.
Right.
It would just be like where they are.
Yeah. So these may be the reason. What are some other reasons why maybe the ones who have a lower GPA are the ones who pull all-nighters? What's another reason why there might be correlation?
Well, they might be really stressed in general, which makes them have to take the all-nighters, which creates their lower grade in the first place.
Or
they
they
might
may be the kind of students who put off their work to the last minute
Yeah.
Yeah.
and therefore have to pull an all-nighter to do the exam. So
Mhm.
maybe it's not the all-nighter that lowers the grade. Maybe it's the fact that they put off their work that lowers the grade.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so an important part through all of this, and there will be questions that'll just be about critical thinking. How about this one? The more Tom Cruise runs, the better his movies are.
That's I mean, that's subjective as.
But look, he sprinted. Look, they've got all the data to show it.
There's like multiple.
It's not, there could be other reasons for those movies being more successful.
Yeah.
Like maybe he runs more in those movies because the plot in general is more moving and there's actually more sets. So people are actually enjoying the number of sets rather than the fact that he's running.
Yeah, I thought you said sex for a minute, but
No.
I was like, I can't believe you said it. At least my students said it, and I didn't say it. I don't get any trouble for that. All right, but then I went and said it anyway. But okay, so anyway, you guys want to do a more challenging I'm vain one? Let's see if we can. Let me pull up a couple of examples.
So is this all you have to do for the workbook? You just fill in this whole, like you just do each one by one?
No, I mean it gets more challenging. You know, once you build up. Okay, so we could do this one, for example. Like, barely 2 R's are taught in the school. You want to do one off the PowerPoint, or do you want to do one of these?
Either, I don't mind.
All right, I'm going to flip a coin because I don't care.
I don't really know what R's are.
Reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Oh.
Even though arithmetic starts with an A. Don't ask me how they get that. Reading, writing, and arithmetic. So, okay, I'm going to flip a coin. Call it heads means we do this one. Tails means we do one off the PowerPoint, which will give us graphics and videos and all that good stuff.
Okay.
All right, it's head. So we're doing this one. Then maybe we'll do one off the PowerPoint.
Okay.
So using I'm vain, evaluate Catherine Eidman as a source. Identify an example of transparency. Identify an example of context.
Is Catherine the journalist?
No, she's a source.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, students.
Oh, whoops.
Oh,
Sorry.
does she only comment once?
All right, well, let's go through this through I'm
Ooh.
vain, right? Using I'm vain. So what's the first letter of I'm vain stand for?
Independent.
Independent.
And,
Okay, is she independent?
well, she's no. Well, she's a lawyer at a public council.
Right. So is she just entirely speaking for herself, or does she have an interest in this?
No, she does because she joined the Native American Disability Law Center and other groups who represents the students in the lawsuit. So she's for the students. So she's obviously gonna
Yeah.
protect them or have their I don't know thing in mind.
Right.
So she's not she's not that independent. She has a stake in it.
Okay. Now, is she someone? Is her point of view backed up by multiple other sources?
Yes, like the test scores and stuff.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
Well, it's backed up by other hearsay in a sense. Like they interviewed some people in the first paragraph, which is where they got the information about the nature of the school.
Yeah. Okay.
So
multiple, and she's not independent, but there are multiple sources, right?
yeah.
Is what she's saying, is there any verification that's what she's claiming is true?
Well, it's kind of a subjective. It's an opinion, but because of the test scores, I think it's seen as valid.
Well,
Oh, and there's also Sally Jewell, who tends to agree.
yeah. So does it look like in an exit memo detailing, so that's a document, right? The exit memo that's been filed.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's documentation. So there's verification of what the woman is saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is Catherine Eidemann authoritative on this subject? Does she have credentials and expertise to speak about it?
Yes.
I think she's a lawyer.
Yeah.
Does that make her like? I mean, she's acting for the school, so obviously she probably knows a lot of information about it. But it's not like she's an early childhood, I don't know, psychologist or something.
Right. Okay. So partially authoritative.
Yes.
Is she informed? Meaning, is she privy to information? Does she have any direct knowledge of information that would let her know that this is going on?
Yeah, well, she represents the students in the lawsuit.
Yeah. So to some degree, right? Maybe she's been there. I mean, she certainly talked to a lot of people about it.
Yeah.
So she has that. She's informed in that sense. And is she named? Yes, she's named, right?
Yes.
Okay. So Now, can you identify an example of transparency in the story?
Would it be like the quotes from the people? Because they're named and they're saying these things?
Let's see. Does it explain anything about why these people are not named?
I think everyone's named though in this.
Well, the
example.
children and the
Oh.
teachers aren't, right?
Yeah, and it says they say at the top.
Yeah. Is there any other example that tells you something about transparency in here?
The interior department. That thing, maybe.
I think right here.
Oh yeah, kidding.
Why would I say that's an example of transparency?
Well, it's not transparency, like in the sense that he's declined to comment.
Well, but if it wasn't transparent, then maybe it wouldn't mention that.
True.
You see
So
what I'm
they've given
saying?
him the opportunity.
Yeah, so the reporter is being transparent in explaining that they did try to get the other side of the story. Because you don't see anybody else in here defending the school, right?
No, yeah, true.
So this is where the transparency comes in. You understand? So
Yeah.
so transparency is where the reporter shows us what they're doing or why they're doing it, how they're handling the sourcing. Okay.
Yeah.
Just
I have to go to another Zoom at 2, by the way. Like I'll stay on till then, but I just don't want to.
Yeah.
Go.
All right. So the next one we would do, I don't know, let's skip and do this one. You'll only have a couple minutes here for this, Libby, but we'll try and get it at least going a little bit. Let me see where it starts. Okay. Let's see if, do I have the video of this? Hold on. I don't have the video of it pulled up. Let me see if I can do it real quick. I mean, you only have a couple minutes. There's a video to this thing right here. Trying to think of what the video would be called. Well, give me a second, see if I can find it. Okay. Is this one gonna be in here? If not, I'll set it up for next time because you're pretty much out of time anyway with it.
Next week we start the final exam prep, right?
The what?
Like it said on the Zooms, the final exam, like starting the.
I mean, we basically started on it. That's what we were doing here.
Yeah.
But we'll get deeper into it. These are all exercises for it. And I've got to, I guess, pull up this video of there's this one for the car accident one, which I thought was embedded. Oh yeah, here we go.
Under those safety concerns about guardrails on the nation's roads, a new lawsuit says a common type of guardrail can potentially cause serious injury or even death in some accidents. ABC's Brian Ross is back, has that story for us.
Well, good morning again, Robin. This is a story about twisted metal, lost limbs, and painful death. An ABC News investigation into a fixture of American highways that is now at the center of a huge controversy, producing outrage from motorists across the country.
I'll tell you guys what, why don't we covered a fair amount today, right? You think this would be good to put up and share with your classmates, what we have right here? And then,
I think so.
And then this whole video, why don't we plan to do that on this PowerPoint with the practices? We can plan to do that the Tuesday when we return. And at the same time, I'm going to assign you guys some more deconstruction exercises for next week. And, you know, we'll go over those. We'll try and cover all of this or most of it on Tuesday. And then on Thursday, we'll cover the newest round of deconstruction exercises. And the idea is we just keep practicing that so that you guys are able to take on more sophisticated ones. There's not, as you can probably tell, there's not really so much right and wrong answers that I'm looking for. Is I'm looking to see you guys doing the critical thinking and doing the analysis of the news. Sound
Okay.
good?
Yes, perfect.
All right. Thank you guys for coming. Hopefully
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. G.
Yeah. Oh, Noe, can you hang on for a second? I know you got.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.